G'day, bird nerds. Welcome to Saturday morning here in Wurundjeri country, the unceded lands of the Wurundjeri people in Australia, Melbourne, Naarm, however you would like to refer to it. It's chilly here, but it's reasonably nice. I've had a busy week, so we're going to talk about feeding birds in your garden. I see that has popped up a few times in my mentions, and I got a message on the social medias about feeding birds in the garden. So I really just want to hear today if you feed birds. If you do, what do you feed? How do you do it? What are your results? And if you don't, I would like to know why you don't. What's your view? Here in Australia, BirdLife Australia doesn't recommend feeding birds. But the it's a little bit tepid in rejecting feeding birds, but there are some very good reasons not to do it. But I always vacillate on this point, because I think in some places, I think there in some locations, I think there is more evidence is not the right word, but perhaps a greater reason for encouraging the feeding of birds and other wildlife than in some other locations. For instance, I think where I live, and I'm highly urbanized, and I have very few native species that actually visit my my garden or my locality. I think there may be some benefit in encouraging the feeding of wildlife, and I'll go into that if people would like to give their thoughts and comments. I'm really interested to know how people feel about it and what their results are, what they see around them in different localities, different locations. If you're not in Australia, I'd particularly like to know what your results are or what your feelings are. On really significant flyways where there's large, regular, annual or biannual movements of birds, there's a lot of evidence that feeding birds is actually supporting bird populations. There's a corollary to that, though. If at one end of the journey or somewhere along the way, food resources are taken away, well, for any reason, maybe people stop feeding for some reason. Maybe it becomes something that governments encourage against, or that conservation or wildlife bird societies, whatever you want to name them, start to discourage, and that support is withdrawn. Maybe that is very bad for bird populations. Anyway, I don't really want to go down that road so much today. I want to know what your experiences are. I've covered many times on the bird emergency what some sort of official points of view are, what some organisations uh, state about feeding birds. I've talked about my experiences, particularly during the period of the lockdowns in the pandemic. So there's a lot of anecdotal thought out there. And the whole point of the Habitat Gardening channel is really about encouraging people to plant or maintain gardens that can support birds and wildlife, insects, um, you know, amphibians, reptiles, um, mammals, fish if you're lucky enough to have a stream or a dam in uh, your garden in as natural a way as possible, where you are encouraging natural behaviours as much as it's possible to do in an urban, semi-urban setting. But over to you. And of course, these conversations go for as long or as short as is required, because uh, these live streams are for you to tell me what you do, or to ask me, a horticulturist and certified bird nerd, what I think, and or if I know of uh, uh, better qualified opinions than my own to answer some questions. So here we are, Saturday morning. I might add, I'm only how many days away? I am now 3 days away from completing my the course that I've been doing. So I'll have a lot more free time coming up to do more regular live streams. Might also note that one of the mainstream journalists here in Australia has just realised that perhaps our new Minister for the Environment in Australia uh, is a kind of a machine politician, and that um, the Northwest Shelf decision was fairly predictable. Funny how we covered that in a live stream recently on the bird emergency, and not just another podcast. Okay, so here we are. Here we are, just waiting. This is an interactive uh, stream. That's the whole reason for doing it. So if people are out doing other things today and wondering if Glenn or Stan are here today, oh, here we go. I have someone's popped in. Where are we? Hello, Stan. Uh, Stan, Kangaroo Island TV on Kangaroo Island in South Australia. Stan doesn't feed birds in his garden, as they seem to do fine with the trees, etc., and are already abundant. Yes, that's the way that we would like it to be. I think this is where there are arguments for and against, and it's a little bit like doing a site analysis of your situation. You might see behind me we have a. Let's move my head. Now they're the Australian ringneck parrot, and that's the 28 variety, which is an inland Australian parrot, and it's doing reasonably well. Supplemental feeding, I think, would not be really needed. But I'm guessing, looking at that table, I'm thinking that might be a park. Maybe it's a caravan park or something like that, where that situation is. And if here's where I am torn about this, and I'm sure, Stan, you've probably heard me talk about this before. If doing some supplemental feeding and bringing birds into contact with people who do not generally have contact with wild birds, and this is similar to the experiences of like people going to the penguin parade in Phillip Island and Rottnest Island and interacting with quokkas, and the whole reason for having places like the Currumbin Sanctuary and having emus wandering around Healesville Sanctuary in uh, on the outskirts of Melbourne is to encourage people to have interactions with wildlife. But then you have the problem that might crop up, and this is where my conscience is a bit pricked, or where I am torn about this, is that we then sometimes normalise in people's minds that those interactions are interactions with nature, with the wild world, and that if we normalize those interactions as being the best or the most desirable kinds of interactions, uh, then then the priority or the imperative to preserve birds or animals in the wild can be lost. Now, Stan, here's a Stan says, not sure how I can even feed New Holland honeyeaters, wattlebirds, and what do we got? PWs. What's a P? Is that a PW or an FW? Help me out with that one again. There were heaps of 28s in the Perth suburbs where I went to high school. Yeah. Now, Stan, are you asking how you can feed? Like if you were to do supplemental feeding for honeyeaters and wattlebirds? Uh, is that uh, is that what you're saying? Um, because I can give you the fairy wrens. There we are. Okay. I was thinking you might put an S on there, so a superb fairy wren. Okay. Uh, all right. I'll tell you what. I'll be back in just a second, and I'll show you uh, some things you can use to feed those, all of those. Just so don't go away. Oh. I did think about this um, before. That's why I didn't have them with me, and I thought maybe I don't want to promote the products, but uh, I mean the Australian Bird Count and Bird Week for BirdLife Australia, are sponsored by this company that produces this product, which is the Harmony Wild Bird Lorikeet and Honeyeater feed. Now, this is the one that Loz absolutely loves. But I suspect, now, I bought this in Kmart, but it's available in Woolworths and Coles around me, so you can find it pretty much everywhere. And this is a good supplemental feed for um, honey eaters and lorikeets. I also, for variation, use this. Now, this one was recommended to me by some veterinarians. So but again, it's available in supermarkets, wet or dry. You can put it out there. Um, Loz also enjoys this one. If you don't want something messy and wet, nectar pellets. Now, they're like little chook pellets, but they're very little and suitable again for any of these nectar feeding birds. Now you asked about blue wrens. Now I got this for magpies, but these are dried mealworms. There we are. Same brand, the same brand that sponsors the um, Australian Bird Count, Bird Week for BirdLife Australia. Now the mealworms are great. I use them for the magpies and uh, and the butcherbirds if they ever come in. The wattlebirds also love them. Now for fairy wrens, you would just crush them down a little bit because they are just insects. Make them a bit smaller. Now, where are we? What have I got down here? Stan. Stan has said all blue wrens. I don't think they need it, but when it was dry, I was thinking of helping them out. They always have water out, and the blackbirds and sparrows do just fine. Yeah. Well, the whole see in an area like yours, Stan, you would generally think that supplemental feeding wouldn't be needed, except in times of drought, which is when you are um, supporting a population that already exists. But then sometimes, the other thing you think is, well, but these are natural occurrences. But maybe in an altered climate, maybe they're not so natural. So that's why I'm always torn on these things. Stan says again, interesting. None of the birds seem to mess with my veggies. I still have tomatoes, chilies, etc., hanging on the bushes. Well, most of the birds around near you, that's not their preferred food. Berries and fruits. You think about lorikeets, for instance, in your part of the world. Naturally, those kind of foods are very sparse, few and far between. On the east coast and further north, where you do have syzygiums, eugenias, and Elaeocarpus, blueberry ash, and all those kind of plants growing. Well, then you're going to have pigeons, and some of the parrots will prefer that kind of fruit. But most of the parrots are going to want to eat eucalyptus seed and rip apart banksia seeds and cones in your neck of the woods. And the nectar feeding ones are just going to prefer the nectar. Bearing in mind that when, people, this is the issue about supplemental feeding. If the lorikeets don't have a nectar-based product to feed on, but seed is offered, they'll eat the seed. And that for a nectar feeding bird is bad. We don't want that. So and that's why I've got the picture behind me of the 28s or the Australian ringnecks. They're being fed a commercial wild bird mix, and that for them is a bit dodgy because it's full of sunflower seeds, and that's not what we should be offering them. It should be much smaller seeds, and it should be drifted around. Um, I mean, and even better, yeah, it's just not great. And Stan also says I have a couple of people that feed magpies, hopefully using the powder supplement I've trained Twig to chase and bark at corvids to protect the little birds. Yeah. But remember, corvids need food too, and they eat little birds. That's normal. So um, the problems are when there are so many, know, ravens or crows and currawongs around that they can outnumber. They have an unfair advantage over the smaller birds. So that's where we need to balance. If you're going to feed bigger birds, well, then you need to offer in your garden shelter, refuge for the smaller birds. So it's where none of these conversations are simple. Uh, Now, the Wombaroo mix is ideal for magpies. The Wombaroo insectivore mix. I don't have any at the moment. Generally, I can only buy that online, and sometimes it's a bit outside my price range. When I run out of something, I always try and buy Wombaroo instead. I've been really pleased uh, with this as a Vetafarm product, the nectar pellets. Loz does and for those who don't know, Loz is a lorikeet that shares the house here with me. Loz doesn't prefer the nectar pellets, but is quite happy to eat them. Loz prefers. This is Loz's favourite, but it's a bit like I suspect it's a bit like a sugar hit. So I don't give. I don't do it daily for Loz. It's kind of like a once in a week or every 2 weeks treat. Uh, Stan saying again, my big rambling honeysuckle orange flowering counts as feeding the nectar feeders, the nectar lovers. Yeah, well, that's exactly the point. If you and this is why in areas like where I live, there's very little opportunity for those birds. And indeed, if there were, I'm sure it's why there aren't. We just don't see gliders and a lot of possums around here. Possums are not a big problem around here because there's not much for them to eat. I don't think. Um, but if there were lots of Banksias and Grevilleas and callistemons flowering every month of the year, well, that would be a good thing. Uh, Bearing in mind that most of the honey eaters, sort of aptly named, but also a bit misleadingly named, those honey eaters, wattlebirds, they are insectivorous as well as nectar feeders, floriferous, nectivorous. They, when there's no flowers around, they switch to having insects. So I think if you're feeding, you need to be very varied. The the point you made about magpies and the correct food is important, Stan. Feeding things like cheese and mincemeat to Australian magpies or other corvids is not recommended at all. It can have severe health issues for those birds, and we don't want to make birds expect food and rely on supplemental feeding. Which comes down to that point that you mentioned, Stan, about in a time of drought. Well, perhaps you want to have, you do want to support a population that might be having trouble. But feeding cockatoos or other birds at a regular time habituates them to supplemental feeding. It alters natural behaviour. We want them to be doing things like foraging. Uh, I've always mentioned, and apart, let's go back a step too. When you're doing nectar feeding birds, you need to have a receptacle for the birds to feed out of. Wherever birds congregate uh, in close proximity, you have the possibility of disease being transferred from one to the other, and we have avian influenza. Obviously, is a problem. We've got um, parrot beak and feather disease, beak and feather virus here. Um, so you don't want the birds feeding right next to each other in receptacles that can lead to that transmission. So if you're going to take on the responsibility, and it is a responsibility, apart from it being a pleasure and a delight, if you're sharing your uh, your home, your abode with nature, if you are inviting them in and you are regularly providing food, it then becomes a responsibility that that food is there. Because if you started off with two wattle birds and you've been feeding for 4 or 5 years and all of a sudden you've got 15 wattle birds, those wattle birds have built up that population based on the food that you're providing. So if you withdraw it, what do you think happens? It's just it's just a bit logical. What happens to you if you got no food? Um, yeah. So I always I always advocate that you can provide foraging, natural foraging opportunities. And Stan's example, as he just mentioned a moment ago, of the rambling honeysuckle is a great opportunity. And remember, when you have a plant like a honeysuckle, not only do the nectar feeders have an opportunity there, the insect feeders also have an opportunity to forage through it. And being a dense climber, it offers opportunities for refuge, for shelter, for birds as well. Even though my honeysuckle would not be my first choice, it is popular and it is in a lot of gardens and it is adaptable and it is reliable as an ornamental plant. So it, it can be a very adequate selection. Um, just like Stan, I think you've got the plumbago, haven't you? So there are um, certainly lots of non-native plants which are valuable additions for a habitat garden. Only the obvious ones to think about are where the proteas and leucadendrons and plants like that to support nectar feeding birds. Very popular. I very rarely talk about them because I'd much rather see people planting grevilleas and banksias and hakeas and eucalypts or corymbias, calithamnus. I always want to encourage people to seek those plants out because if you go to your nursery and you ask about them, well, then people might grow them and then they might become more available for more people to plant them, and then we have a happy cycle. One of the things, it's probably the only really negative I want to bring up about um, feeding birds, is that depending on how you do it, and most people just do it by putting out a container full of seed or a container full of bird mix, um, nectar mix perhaps, is it encourages and facilitates aggressive birds, the bigger birds, the dominant birds, perhaps um, uh, the birds that have a social dynamic of a group or a small colony, to be the ones that dominate the food source. So that again is why maybe several receptacles of food spread it around different heights, different kind of locations, some closer to where you might, perhaps your back door or your front door or your balcony, and some perhaps further away. Get a hanger and put it in a in uh, in a more sheltered part of the garden. You got to think about all of those things because aggressive birds can dominate. And then, of course, they get the feed and then they reproduce, and then there's more aggressive birds and more bullying birds. Some people think that's good because some of those birds have big personalities or uh, might become tamer. But just be aware that they are not always positive interactions that you're having with your local wildlife. So I think that's most of the things I wanted to draw out. I did want to get some feedback from people who are feeding. So if you're in, what have we got? Well, we've got Stan on the YouTube. Let me just see where. Have we got any Twitches? Yeah, we got Twitch. We got Twitch and YouTube today. So, what are your experiences? Are you someone like me who did feed and now really doesn't? Although I'm always tempted. I can't fib because I do like that interaction with the birds, but I'm glad that I'm not feeding in the way that I was anymore because we don't get the big flock of cockatoos and corellas coming in. And I know that level of population around here is artificially high. Um, and I really worry about that because the nesting opportunities for those birds around here is few and far between, and we don't have rosellas, so I'm guessing that like the little corellas are probably dominating all the possible hollows that the rosellas might have used in this area. I've mentioned before the red rumps are far less numerous than they were before, and that might be because the lorikeets are accessing the hollows that the red rumps used to. I don't have any evidence for that. That's just my thought. They're similar sized birds, and the rainbow lorikeets are far more aggressive. And there are a lot more rainbow lorikeets around here than when I first came into this area, 10, 11, I don't know, it might even be 12 years ago now. No, it's 11 years, I think, now. So, yeah, everything's a balance, right? I know that's a really inadequate kind of way to talk about this, but that is absolutely um, uh, that is absolutely what you need to think about when you are providing opportunities for wildlife in your garden. You're inviting them in. They start to rely on it. They do it. If they move in, it becomes their home, and it's their home because of the situation that you have provided for them. So you need to maintain it. So I guess if you're going on holidays, it's every bit as important to be maintaining the same opportunities in your garden as if you were leaving your cat or dog behind. If you've organised someone to feed your cat or dog, you really need to make sure that they are refilling your water containers, and if there's a regular spot and product that you are feeding birds with, that needs to be maintained. Which, of course, is why having the plants do the job is a much better idea than doing supplemental feeding. But on the other hand, it's really nice to have the wildlife uh, in your life, and if the vegetation around you doesn't support it, well, there's the rub, isn't it? There's the rub, and this is why I stopped feeding. If the neighbourhood doesn't support it, well, then it seems like a bad idea to be artificially supporting that population. But as I say, I'm not definitive on this. I vacillate all the time. Even while I'm talking about it now, I'm thinking, well, you know, well. Anyway, I've shown you some products that are available in certainly in the big box stores, in the supermarkets, and in Big W and Kmart. And um, last time I looked in Bunnings, I think the Harmony brand was there. Um, the the Whistler brand, which is this one, I have only been able to buy online, or for no, beg your pardon. Some rural suppliers places have it, and some vet supply places have it. So someone like Stan in regional Australia will probably have access to it. I doubt you're going to find it in the city unless you go to a big sort of rural supplies place on, perhaps on the outer suburbs of of your city. Uh, this product I did buy online. I bought this on eBay. Was recommended to me by a vet, and from what I can tell, it's doing a good job on Loz or loricate. But I would much prefer that you bought some uh, native plant tube stock or small plants in your garden, plant it up, and let nature, as much as gardens can be nature, let nature take care of itself. Um, okay, let's throw it open. Anything at all you would like to talk about? Gardening, birds, animals, Radiohead. Um, uh, yeah, anything at all? So if not, I'll just finish me homework, and perhaps think about doing a politics stream later today or tomorrow. Um, it's been very interesting times in politics, but gee, nothing really positive from the environmental side. Uh, yeah. Has anyone done any good bird watching? Anyone bought any interesting plants for their garden? Anyone discovered anything interesting in their garden lately? Um, what did I discover? Just trying to think what I saw this week that might be good. Um, no, I haven't seen anything unusual this week. No interesting birds of prey. No interesting water birds or birds flying overhead. That seems to be the most interesting things I see around here lately. Um, I think with the amount of rain that's been hitting inland Australia, um, we might see some movements. If you're looking skyward, you might see some water birds moving around, uh, heading for the inland or for the north, where there's a lot more water being dumped, and those habitats will change and come alive. with the advent of floods. So there might be some opportunities to see birds moving through. But no, I haven't seen anything in this part of Melbourne in the last little while that has been interesting. I haven't been hearing anything. Probably the best bird watching opportunity I've had in the town, like in the suburban part of town, has been all the crested pigeons, blackbirds, and even wattlebirds at eating the cotoneasters because they're all holding a lot of fruit, berries at the moment. Of course, very popular ornamental plant in Melbourne, but a pretty poor potential environmental weed. So, not a first choice for a fruit eating bird food source for mine. Okay, well, Stan, anyone else? Any other final thoughts? I haven't really got anything else much to add. I really wanted to throw this in as a subject because I saw it pop into my feeds quite a bit with people having debates about supplemental feeding. Some people being virulently for it, some virulently against it. I think my statement is pretty simply that it depends on your situation. I know in my suburb, I mean, I've talked about this a lot, that was so many houses being cleared or being sold, and then the gardens are cleared, and then the houses are demolished, and then townhouses are put in place. Every time a garden is removed, the feeding opportunities for the existing population of birds disappears. And I know I've mentioned that birds like grey fantails, willy wagtails around here are disappearing. Now they need that insectivorous uh, food source. So those mealworms are the kind of thing that can be offered out to them. Uh, Stan, thank you for the good lucks. I can tell you, Stan, that all I've got to do now is the practical teaching next week. So once I've done that, it's done. So that's good, and then I just have to write up the prac. So basically, it's done, and then I'll start looking to do some volunteering and some teaching. Yeah, I should do a stream on the Northwest Shelf gas approval. The problem with that is, Stan, I'll be honest about this. I mean, I did do the stream about Murray Watt, and we had a look at his history. I noticed that James Massola, I think, in the Age today, has just worked out that, oh, gee, Murray Watt's just um, a political animal. I mean, he was the president of Young Labor Queensland when he was 15 years old. I mean, I did do a stream about this last week, was it a week ago or was it 2 weeks ago? This is why I was so critical of Tanya Plibersek, and indeed, Albanese has got to wear it. The West Australian Premier, Roger Cook, as well. The time to do the hard work was in the last Parliament. And they didn't And they didn't precisely because they wanted to approve this Northwest Shelf project. Now, with the approval being done, I'm not sure how much value there is to talk about it, other than to highlight the kind of things about how little it really of that project really benefits Australia in the economic sense. Because if any other kind of business on that scale turning over that level of sales, the the return to the Australian community would be massive uh, compared to what it is. Now, Stan, here's a really interesting point. We're veering off onto politics on the habitat gardening again, but yeah, don't vote Labor. Well, I qualify that. Uh, I really qualify that because Labor is better than the other mob that might form government. But here's the problem. Here's the problem about third party politics. Third party politics is useful. Like, I think it's really useful that Labor can't pass anything in the Senate without the Greens. But that only holds true if they don't collaborate with the coalition. So Labor could get together with the Nationals or the Liberals, or some of the Nationals or some of the Liberals and One Nation, and pass legislation. So what we really need to do is try and shape Labor to be more progressive. And that means we always need to talk about them, and we always need to be involved, and we always need to understand who the people who win the seats and form the policies are. And when they're people like Murray Watt, we're not getting progressive politics. Look, arguably Tanya Plibersek was far more progressive than Murray Watt. The problem is Tanya Plibersek has never made it. She wasn't prepared to stand on principle. She said all of the things about the nature positive, no more nature positive solutions, no more extinctions. The Our environmental law is broken. We're going to fix it. She said all of those things, and then has not come out and said anything about why they didn't get it done. And that's because she's preserving her position in the party. She's not picking a fight within the party. Yeah, look, Stan, I always think it's a little bit more complicated than just saying don't vote Labor. How do we, I mean, this is a problem for environmental movements around the world. If the Greens could hold 4 or 5 seats in the lower house, or independents who were environmentally focused, that would make a difference. The problem for us is the independents who are winning, like the Teals. They're basically liberals who are a bit environmentally focused, but they're not. They're still basically conservatives. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. That's why I get very downcast. And when I think about doing things locally, we're not solving the global problems, and perhaps why I'm getting a little bit more uh, persuaded by some of the arguments that it's all a bit too late. It kind of doesn't matter. We may as well enjoy the next 50 years and enjoy the species that we have around us now, um, before we exit stage left from the planet. I don't like, I don't, but I don't want to think that way. But I'm, I just don't know. I just don't know, Stan. I just don't know. So I'm all for planting more native plants in your garden, designing a good wildlife friendly garden, and having your local wildlife come in and make your life good, and you try and make their life good. I don't know. Yeah, I don't. I don't know how positive we can be about a government uh, taking environmental issues seriously when they can't even call in the Israeli ambassador in and say, "How about you stop annihilating a civilian population? Hey, how about you give that bit a rest?" So it's uh, it's pretty crap. It's pretty crap. Um, and on that note, it's time to stop listening to Radiohead. Um, isn't it? Isn't it disappointing? Isn't it disappointing that sometimes the good guys aren't the good guys, eh? Eh? So there we are. All right, folks. Stan, thanks for contributing this morning. Glenn, if you're out there, I hope you're having a reasonable day out there in the Botanic Gardens. Anybody else doing some gardening this weekend? Well, if you're in the northern hemisphere where it's summer, uh, slip, slop, slap, wear a hat. Um, if you're in one of the flood affected parts of Australia, I feel for you. Um, actually, I'll tell you what we will do. When I do the next politics stream, I'm going to play you something that I watched the other day about the impending catastrophe that we have for insuring properties and businesses going forward. Uh, we were ahead of the curve talking about Murray Watt. People are just working out that, oh, gee, maybe machine politicians maybe aren't that great for doing environment stuff. And yeah, I think, I don't know. See, I get so frustrated even talking about it because what's it going to do? Is anything that any of us say or do going to impact now the uh, uh, so here we are. Oh, Glenn, I've got your comment here. There we are. I've got your comment here, but I'm not getting YouTube. I'm not getting Facebook comments. Uh, I've got to say, Glenn, according to this, nobody on Facebook is actually watching. So were you watching the stream on Facebook, but not able to participate? Because that's interesting. I've done nothing different than I normally do, but it's showing me that nobody on Facebook is watching, but that we do have YouTube and Twitch watching. And obviously Stan's been participating. You just have on YouTube. It may well be that that Facebook have done more dicking around with stuff. Okay, so there were two on Facebook and made comments there. Well, that's really, really interesting. Watch the whole stream. well, well, hello to those of you on Facebook. This just reinforces. Hello, I'm sorry that I haven't been seeing your comments. I also have the app. I also have my phone here where I can generally see comments coming in from other platforms. Uh, Glenn, I did see that an hour ago you did like the stream. So that was obviously when I was posting about it coming up. So those of you on Facebook, there's another reason why you should be subscribed on YouTube, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube, or Twitch. You can, if you don't want to be on YouTube, you can come over to Twitch, thebirdemergency.com/Twitch. And it just highlights how many of these platforms are making it difficult. It looks like now maybe Facebook and the integration with Facebook and this streaming platform is not working because they want me to stream on Facebook or they want me to stream on uh, 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 um, so what's Glenn saying here? Only just managed to get onto the YouTube. I tried a few times to get onto YouTube and only just got onto the live YouTube. Took several attempts. Is that just today, Glenn, or is that generally? May just be that things are a bit stuffed this morning. Might be that the platform that I'm on this morning is not performing the way it should. I did see that they had mentioned that they have integrated with another platform, so it could be that it's just not working. I see a whole lot more people have just come in. No, but they're not from. Maybe they're from Facebook and they've just jumped over to YouTube. I just noticed a spike in the numbers, so I'm still not showing anyone on Facebook, but obviously you were. So who knows? That's why it can be frustrating. I did promote a lot wider this morning too. I might have to think about when I'm done with this study and if I'm do a bit of volunteering and whatnot. Glenn says, usually have a few issues on the phone to get onto the YouTube. Facebook works easier for walking around. Well, that yeah, that might just be an issue with the mobile apps, I guess. Yeah. Well, I mean, I've kept up the idea of to keep streaming to Facebook, so I'm glad that somebody is that people are watching. I'm happy about that. Betty, if you're out there, hello. Maybe Betty's watching on Facebook, and then I'm never getting any of the interaction back. I got to say, I'm a bit worried about Facebook at the moment. I don't know if any of you saw some of the AI generated videos that were promoted over the weekend that Google have put a new generative AI program out there that makes it so hard to tell what's a real video now and what's not. And I think now it's only this kind of interaction, this kind of back and forth that lets you really know that what you're watching is not AI content. If you're just watching talking heads or even people walking around, that could well be generative AI. And the support that Facebook is giving some of these fraudulent, that's the word I'm going to use, fictitious, fake videos where it's AI generated personas masquerading as real people. It's getting very, very hard to really put content on Meta, knowing that they're scraping all of our images and you allowing those to be used in other generative AI. Yeah, so yeah. Anyway, nothing to do with plants. What's in flower in the gardens, Glenn? What birds are you seeing at the? I'm assuming, yeah, you're out in the Mount Annan Botanic Gardens today. I'm assuming. Um, let's just see if you've seen uh, anything interesting. I'm just trying to think. No, I haven't seen anything notable. It was a few weeks ago that I saw a pelican in St Albans. Um, no, I haven't seen anything cool here. Anything at all. Um, all right, folks. We'll just stick around for a couple more minutes, see if anyone wants to volunteer. Oh, here we go. Glenn's telling me now the hakeas are in flower. Yes, uh, yes, the hakea arena around here are popping off. What's Glenn got here? Oh, four Pacific Baza or crested hawk for us oldies, but the Pacific Baza. Were they, Glenn? Were they just en route to places? Like, were you catching them flying from one place to another, or were they circling around looking for prey? Um, they're a cool bird. They're a cool bird. Uh, so I'm just looking to see. I'm going to get into my Facebook now. So I'm not getting notifications either. Just let me. Oh, start conversations with ads. No, thank you. Um, these are the kind of messages I get on Facebook all the time. So Glenn says, yes, circling around. One was feeding and the tops of the gums. So I wonder what it caught, maybe a thornbill or something, and ripping it apart. Uh, I get these great messages on Facebook all the time. Hi, the bird emergency. I really love your mission and the way you present urgent issues about bird conservation on YouTube. Bearing in mind that he has messaged me on Facebook, so he really loves what I do on YouTube. I'm a YouTube SEO specialist and I help educational channels like yours grow their audience, blah, 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 blah. Um, why would you message me on Facebook about doing something on YouTube? I get so much bloody rubbish crap. Well, I can tell you on the bird emergency on my mobile app on Facebook, um, I have no interactions this morning. Let me have a look here. No, and Glenn, I've just got you liking the stream. So, yeah, something's not connecting properly. Even on my Facebook app, I can't see any interaction from you or anyone on Facebook today. So, Facebook did try and get me to download uh, a new back end, but it's beyond the capabilities of my phone. So that isn't going to happen. And maybe they're trying to force me to do something else that I don't want to do. So maybe that will become the death knell of Facebook. I will try a different way. I'll do this afternoon. So if anyone's around, um, probably after lunch, I'll just do a quick thing using a different streaming platform, and I'll just stream to YouTube and Facebook and see if that changes anything. Um, yeah, so sorry if you are on Facebook and you've been trying to interact and you haven't been able to. I'm not ignoring you. I am just not seeing you. More people have jumped in, so I am guessing that people are choosing to come over to YouTube. Please do. Uh, uh, what's Glenn telling me here? If I go into YouTube now, I won't see anything till the live stream is over. Then it all comes up. If I go on now, I'll only see posts from when I got on. A bit odd. I think I've got to be honest with you, Glenn. Facebook are dicking around like they're uh, they're dicking around with their back end, and they're really trying to drive me into a platform supporting ads. Um, I don't think they like. I don't think they like people multi-streaming. I think they want everything to be on Facebook. That ain't going to happen with me. I won't be natively streaming on Facebook. Um, it's a platform that really supports misinformation and disinformation now. It's almost as bad as the old as Twitter, as X. Um, that they actually promote AI fake videos, and I think that's got the potential to be really, really bad. At least on YouTube, if you are watching AI stuff, it gets labelled as AI. Currently, their algorithms still figure it out that it is fake, or that it is generative AI. So that's good. I I may have to just consider streaming direct to the bird emergency website if all this keeps getting worse. The um, I might play. I might play later on. I know we're off the topic. Sorry for just everyone in Habitat Garden, but people have stopped talking about their garden, so we'll move on to this a little bit. I might do in this afternoon stream replay some of the things I've been watching about the generative AI and the consequences, potential consequences of it, and why we need to be a bit vigilant about it. I hope the Australian government will move to outlaw it without notification. I'm not I'm not against people using generative AI, but I am against people passing off generative AI as being real a real person saying things. Uh, I have played around. I did have a program that offered uh, being able to basically synthesize me, and I could put a script into it, and it would have me say stuff. But it wasn't. It didn't look real. It didn't sound real. But I can imagine people, especially on platforms like Facebook, where it's mainly an elderly uh, population using it, who are not quite so good as picking out what's crap and what isn't. Uh, getting sucked into this and then getting ripped off, or oh, it's just got so many possible negative effects, and I can't think of any positive ones. You know, um, I did see something where there are companies now doing job interviews just by generative AI bots. I'm not sure. I think that that's a good idea at all. Yeah. Anyway, if you're still there, people on Facebook who can't join in, do come over to the YouTube, thebirdemergency.com/YouTube, or thebirdemergency.com/Twitch. They're the platforms that take streaming seriously in terms of their making sure it all works and being okay with multi-streaming. And the whole idea of doing all this for me is not to cultivate one audience on one platform. I'm trying to reach people who are interested in birds and wildlife and gardening and all the crossovers, conservation and politics, all that crossover. Um, but who knows? Maybe the platforms themselves will force some of the decisions that I always wrestle with about where should I be and why should I be there. Um, I'm consistently streaming to more people on YouTube than I am anywhere else. Um, so I guess that tells me something. But if you're on Facebook, I still love you and everything. But do come over to YouTube. It makes it much easier from my point of view to just stream to one or two places rather than try to do three or four. That's why I've given Instagram away. Instagram did not support the way I want to do streaming. So, and I never got any feedback on Instagram. Any people very rarely were interactive, so that's not why I do it. I did promote on Threads again today. I saw Thread. This is a problem. Threads, Instagram, Facebook—they're all the same thing. Uh, they're all the same thing. So, yeah. All right, I'm just waffling, folks. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about next Saturday morning. Um, I might update my flowering calendar. We'll see how much time I've got. I'm not going to promise because I've got the teaching on Tuesday and I'll probably not want to do much on Wednesday. Yeah, I'll have to write up my teaching prac and everything on Wednesday and Thursday. So yeah, I'll probably just be filling time a bit next week. But I want I want to update my flowering calendars with a lot more, include a lot more plants, um, and perhaps concentrate a bit more on those times of year where there is a bit of a food drought in some gardens. I'd be really interested in your feedback. I might put together a poll about that. I'm not going to say I'm going to do it this week because I know I'm not. I've got too much to do with getting this course finished and just done. But once that is done, we'll get back to much more content, um, and sort of refocus where the bird emergency goes and rethink how best to make a difference. Thinking about Stan's comment about don't vote Labor, I can't really endorse that as a blanket statement because you got to vote for someone. I would say don't vote for Labor or the coalition. That would be my statement that I would get on board with. But then again, I would have to say or the Patriots or One Nation. There we are. See, I've made it far more complicated than it needed to sound, but that's just the facts of it. I just think we need to get more involved. People just need to be more involved. When you aren't involved, you let the people who are involved, like the people who are the young the president of the Young Labour movement at 15 years old, who then become a minister for the environment. You let them make all the decisions. So, sorry about that. Let's get refocused next week about more plants, more flowers. I'm always wanting people to suggest what they would like me to talk about. I'll always talk about my hobby horses. I'd like to include some of yours. That would be good. That would be good. On that note, Glenn, Stan, thanks for being involved. Any of you on Facebook who couldn't be involved, I'm sorry about that. Hope maybe that'll shake out over the next few days. If you want the politics content that I'm probably going to be doing a bit more of, and when I say politics, I don't really mean politics. I mean issues that are a bit removed just from birds and conservation, but it's all together, right? It's all together. But you can find that on Not Just Another Podcast. That's on YouTube or on my Twitch. Twitch is a really good place to see what's going on. I stream whenever I stream to Twitch, whether I'm also going to YouTube or whether I'm also going to Facebook. Always stream on Twitch. thebirdemergency.com/Twitch. Give it a go. There's some really cool stuff on Twitch. There's a lot of crap, but there's some really good stuff on Twitch. Yes. I'm Grant. I'm a bird nerd. I'm a horticulturist. I like talking about plants. I like talking about gardens. I love talking about birds. And I love talking to all of you. See you next week for Habitat Gardening. 9:30 a.m. always. 9:30 a.m. Melbourne time. When I do the thumbnails, I always put the UTC and the whatever the other ones are. Try and make it easy for you. See ya. Enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your Sunday. See you later.